Well, well, well. It's been a few weeks, but we are back. And boy, did I bring the presents on a Christmas weekend. I hope you are all doing well. I hope you're with the family. I hope college football hasn't hurt you too bad. But if it has, fear not. We're here to take you through it. We're here to guide you through the craziness that is college football. And as you can see, we have a regular, but we also have one of my favorite, one of the best media members covering this sport. We're going to start with him. Clint, how are you? And thank you so much for joining us today.
Right out the gate, I'll go ahead and tell you you're way better at those intros than I am. First of all, it's great to be here, man. I love college football. As soon as you reached out, I'm kind of choosy with who I'll go on with, and obviously having Coach Sean here too, I feel like I'm gonna learn a couple of things, hopefully. But yeah, man, I'm just happy to be here. It's a couple of days before Christmas. It's a good time of year.
Coach Sean, how are you, man?
Good man. Been shopping today. Absolute stupid traffic here in Huntsville, Alabama, and it is can't complain, brother. China's messing with my internet. I see it's acting a little crazy, but we're here, brother. We're here, and blessed to have Clint with us.
Yeah, absolutely blessed. And Clint, just to give everybody a timeline, right? Because I know that we were talking in the green room. This is the conversation, the questions you get asked a lot. Maybe not the questions you want to get, but unfortunately, that's where we are, right? And I feel like I would be doing everybody a disservice if I had you on this platform and we didn't kind of dive into that. First and foremost, how long have you been covering the sport?
Um, Covering it from like a media side of things or getting more, probably since I think 2016, the summer of 2016, going into the season where I really started. I was asking people, hey, how do I do this for a living? And they said, hey, just start a blog, start putting down your thoughts where you can kind of go back and point people to things, make predictions, do all that stuff. And finally, that 2016 season, a lot going on with like Jalen Hurts against USC and kind of how that whole season went. But really, yeah, since then, I played high school football, won a state championship for Athens up, near the Tennessee state line back in 2006, graduated in 2009, and then went to Birmingham Southern, RIP, by the way, and played a year there. And then I was going to transfer. I got accepted to walk on at Alabama, but I unfortunately was dating a female at the time who could not handle the 45-minute distance, and I picked a girl over football. Obviously, that never works out. We didn't end up together, but I guess things worked out the way they were supposed to. But yeah, I've had quite an interesting journey, that's for sure.
And the reason that's incredible, right? But the reason I ask you that is how much has it changed in the 8 years you've been covering this from what it once was, what feels like 2 decades ago with how fast everything's moving now, but really NIL wasn't a thing but just a few years ago. So how quickly has this space shifted to what we have right now?
Oh, man, yeah, you're 100% correct. And it's I'll put it to you this way, even things like player safety, right? I mean, I can remember playing, and I don't feel like it was too long ago. Maybe it was, back in 2008, 2007. And I mean, I remember, I learned that anytime you see those little dots after a hit, that's like a mini concussion or something. And it's like, I mean, I was getting those like 4 or 5 practices every day, 4 or 5 times a practice, and then games and everything else. And now it's like everybody, back then it was all about showing how tough you were. So it was like putting your face mask on someone else's face mask at full speed as often as you can. You got to play smarter now. It started kind of there. Obviously the way that the game is actually played has shifted more from run oriented to pass oriented. And then, of course, you have this wave of new stuff: conference realignment, transfer portal, NIL. It's been a whirlwind for college football. And I mean, I guess it's adjusting about as well as it could, considering all the different changes, but it is vastly different than it was even 10, 15 years ago.
You know, I and I've told this story before, Coach Sean. You'll know here very soon where I'm going to go. Clint, I don't want to leave you on a cliffhanger because in the green room I talked about something that bothers me. And my brother in rant is here. And Jance, how are you today?
I'm doing fine. Man. You know what I'm saying? It's funny that we talk about rants, man, because unfortunately, man, we had to, on the social media side of things, when you got to deal with people out here that tries to argue for what happened on Saturday, man, it really irks you. But I know we'll get into that.
What's up, Jay? How you doing, brother?
What's up, Coach Tom? What's going on, Clint?
How you doing, brother?
Clint, he's a Buffalo fan as well, so you
Bill
want to talk about rant? Yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, you got a lot to talk about. They got a pretty good squad though.
Yeah, we do, man. We do. I don't know if it's gonna get us there, man, but this is supposed to be our rebuild year.
I hear a little bit of excitement, but I couldn't help hear the pain in that hesitation, right? And it was palpable. But we'll dive into all that later.
McDermott, Ty. You know how I feel about McDermott.
Hey, I'm going to spare everybody the rant right now, and especially if we start talking about USC. You want to hear a rant, Clint. Him on USC, gold. But,
yeah,
Jance, you've heard my rant on this, but Clint, I don't want to keep you waiting any longer. NIL came about not long ago. NCAA versus Alston was seen by the Supreme Court. Justice Kavanaugh rips the curtains back on the NCAA, states to them, your whole antitrust structure, it's illegal. You cannot operate a business off of the theory that you don't have to pay your workers a fair market wage, just off of a theory. Now, some people have argued that Kavanaugh was overly broad. I am of the mindset that, yes, I understand why people see that. However, it's tough for me to tell a Supreme Court justice that they were overly broad, and especially when he was correct. The problem is that 10 days after Kavanaugh went scorched earth on the NCAA, wouldn't you know it? Guess what they figured out how to do? NIL. The whole thing that Kavanaugh was saying, oh, you have these players that aren't earning a fair market wage. Well, all of a sudden, the NCAA figured out how to do it. Now, this frustrates me because you're a multi-million-dollar business. You had to know this was coming. You knew it was coming. And you sat on your hands and allowed it to get to this point. But even further, what frustrates me, Clint, one of the things that I think you're going to resonate with is we're all big fans of the game, right? The experience, the pageantry, college football is unrivaled with any American sport, in my opinion. There's just not that level of pageantry and passion. You can find some that are close. College football, to me, is on a different level. So what does the NCAA do? They pass the bill to the fan. The multi-million-dollar company, instead of saying, okay, we are going to have some sort of revenue sharing that will inevitably take some of the dollars at the clams, the doubloons, if you will, out of our pockets, we're going to pass that on to the fans. You figure out NIL. And while, sure, I think that could have happened regardless, for the NCAA to wipe their hands with it and think, okay, we've done our job, pat ourselves on the back, we're going to pass the bill to the fans, that frustrates me. And it effectively solved nothing. There's a reason why last January, the NCAA tried to make it a one-time transfer again. A judge in West Virginia put a temporary 14-day injunction on the ruling stating, hey, in these next 14 days, kids, you can transfer as many times as you want. I don't care if it's your 100th time. Go crazy. The NCAA didn't fight it because that judge cited Kavanaugh's ruling about their antitrust structure. And they knew if we do fight this, we're just going to get hit with another one and another one and another one. So everybody right now wants the NCAA to fix this. Everybody right now, they want, maybe fix is a strong word, but they want some parameters around what we have going. Unfortunately, the NCAA's inaction got us here. The NCAA's greed got us here. And I'm not sitting here claiming to know the fix to this. I think this is a massive problem, but I'm also not a multi-million-dollar organization that can pay some of the best attorneys in the United States to sit down for a few years and figure out how can we navigate this. I'm smart enough to recognize a problem, but too stupid to tell you how to fix it. That's where I sit in all of this. That to me is what I told you. This is what keeps me up at night, is this greed, this organization that doesn't have the foresight that the good Lord above granted an apple. And I mean a Granny Smith apple. I'll give them the good kind, but they don't have that level of foresight. What are your thoughts on all of this with the transfer portal, with the NIL? Because I'm of the mindset that players deserve to get paid. I don't mind players having mobility. But having admitted those two things, I can also look at the system that's currently in front of us and say this was supposed to bring more parity. The rich are getting richer, right? Like, yeah, you can say all the guys, and we'll talk about it, that transferred away from Alabama. Well, then Alabama goes and gets Isaiah Horton, right? Alabama goes and they get the cornerback from Utah who had a great season. They got Damani Jackson. They got Jeremy Bernard. Like, they're getting guys as well. But you know who this hurts? A UNLV, they had a quarterback play 4 games, then say, I want more money when he didn't get it. Allegedly. He redshirts, enters the portal. You know who this hurts? My alma mater, the University of North Texas. They'll have a guy look fantastic, gone. So this isn't bringing parity. This is just chaos. What's your thoughts about all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, man. I think right now it's frustrating for fans too. The big losers in all of this, and we really don't probably talk about it enough, are the fans. Like the product, I think anybody in a sense, the game is as strong as ever, but then in a lot of other senses, more than than not, it feels like that what we've all come to love about college football for a variety of reasons is slowly diminishing. And I think that college football fans, like, they're grasping, like Alabama fans in particular. It's like when that whole thing was going down with Jalen Mbakwe, the frustration from fans, where it's like, okay, we're talking about real world problems. There was just a presidential election. People were, all over the place as far as opinions on that. You've got inflation. You've got people struggling. You've got just craziness everywhere. And, it's right here around Christmas time where everybody's, their pockets are a little bit lighter than even normal. And, you've got, Greg Bird coming out and asking fans, hey, we could use your help even more. And it's not, I understand where Greg Byrne is coming from, and I've defended Greg Byrne on that. But I'm saying that's kind of the state of college football. And, what they're looking at is like, you want to go buy the jersey of a player that signs with Alabama out of high school, or you want, your kid to kind of, him be an idol to him. But then he's there a year and then he leaves. Like Caleb Downs, I don't necessarily blame Caleb Downs for what he elected to do. But I also, from an Alabama fan's perspective, it's like he was a guy that Saban raved about, absolutely loved him. He showed up. He was pretty much, he had some up and downs, but from a freshman, standpoint, I mean, he was about as superstar gets. Great kid, goes about his business the right way. And everybody, he becomes a fan favorite almost instantly, and he's there for a year and then he leaves. And so it goes, and, a lot of people overreact to that. A lot of hate gets, sent in his direction, warranted or unwarranted, but that's where people are at. I think right now people just want some sort of, I think people want the sport to be at least moving in the right direction, because in their minds, I mean, it hadn't been moving in the right direction for quite some time.
Yeah, and that's the part that I told you keeps me up is I understand the NCAA, their bottom line is money. Cool, right? I don't fault a business for wanting to make money. That makes sense to me. What I fault them on is having the money, knowing this was coming, getting this bill, and then passing it straight to the fans that don't have multi-millions of dollars. Because to your point, they're now funding collectives. They're now paying more for tickets, right? Like all these prices. I don't know if y'all noticed, YouTube TV just sent out an announcement that they're raising the price January $10 extra. I get it. It's $10. That'll get you half of a Big Mac in 2024. But it's the point of the matter of we're not the billion-dollar organization that is the NCAA. And that infuriated me when the NCAA did that, because it solved nothing. They still don't pass antitrust muster. I'm interested in your take on this, Clint, and then Coach Sean Jantz, I want to pass it to you guys as well. Revenue sharing. This is the only thing that I can see right now that's on the horizon where I look at it and say, okay, when I think of revenue sharing with what the Supreme Court was stating, this could be the first thing that to me allows for college football to start coming back to normal. Now, it will be a new normal. I don't fight that. But it's the only thing I can see right now that allows the NCAA to pass an argument that, hey, our antitrust structure now passes the Sherman Act, which you had wanted all those years ago from Congress, from the judicial system. We now are appropriate through that lens. Now, all of a sudden, we can get back to where you have a one-time free transfer. But, you can't be on transfer number 42 and get 43. What's your thoughts on revenue sharing? Are you thinking it could be a good thing, or what am I missing on this?
No, yeah, I do think that it can be a good thing. Now, granted, with some of this stuff, there's been like some unintended consequences. You always worry about that, and you could find yourself in dealing with a completely separate or new issue later on. But it does feel like that this is the first kind of light at the end of the tunnel, and I don't even know what is going to be at that light. I mean, it's obviously you're not going back 5 years ago. It's not happening. But I think that it feels like the mercenary label that gets put on guys. I don't like that being involved in the sport. Anytime like Jalen Mbakwe is, and I keep using him as an example because he's like a big name guy. Just happened. He loves Alabama as much as any player loves their school. But when you're being enticed with 7-figure payouts, I mean, any of us, you can say that you wouldn't let somebody slap 7 figures in front of you, and then we'll really find out if you're about it or not about it. I think even the most loyal people, when they're talking about 3-4xing your salary, your money, and if you didn't at least consider it, whether you did it or not, it's completely separate conversation. But if you didn't at least consider it, I would say you've got a problem just from that standpoint. So it's like that's what I think is the most concerning part. But if you can get some of this stuff corrected where guys do deserve, they put in a lot of time, they put in a lot of effort, they put themselves at risk. Their quote unquote job, which it is really, to me, it's always been a job, but now it's officially labeled as a job. It's dangerous. It can be extremely dangerous. We've seen guys, suffer some pretty catastrophic injuries on a football field. We've seen it on the NFL level, obviously. You've seen it with guys on the college level too. But it's just, they deserve to be compensated. But it's reached a point in a very short amount of time, all of the power shifted from where players had none to players had all of it. And I think that is where things got kind of, if you talk about things getting turned upside down, that's as upside down as things get based off of what we've known. I think if you just start shifting it back in the other direction a little bit, where there's some give and take for everybody involved, I think you can find a sweet spot. But I'm hoping that this rev share stuff really can be part of that solution. I don't think it's going to be necessarily all the solution, though.
Yeah, I think you're probably 100% right. And as you know, right, the Mbakwe, the reason we keep going back to that, ladies and gentlemen, is give me a more topical name. And that's where we'll go. But that is the most topical name. 5-star, loves the team he's with. It is the best example that we have this year. Coach Sean, as I pass it to you, I want to preface the conversation. I want your takes on everything. But I also want you to dive into this right here because you played, Coach. You coached, Jance, you played. So I want y'all's take on this. And everybody knows where I'm going with this. Tampering's legal.
Yeah.
They say it's illegal, but Clint, you and I went to high school together. We went to camps together. You go to Alabama, I go to UCLA. Funny, I know, right? Me playing college football. Not the point, ladies and gentlemen. After our freshman year, you've had a great season. I'm a wide receiver. You just message me. You text me. Hey, man. Awesome year y'all had this year. I know your quarterback just went to the NFL. We just had all these guys have great years over here. New offensive coordinator, new direction. It's really going well. We're really excited for the future, but dang it if we wouldn't love to have you over here as well. Right? I always wanted to play college football with you. Didn't get that opportunity. It's a shame because I really think that you would do great in this system. And you know that NIL we have over here, I think it'd be awesome. You didn't directly tell me to come, but you have painted the picture that if anybody, if the NCAA got those texts, they would have to prove that it came at the behest of a coach or an administrator. And if you just look at them and say, I'm talking to my friend, you can't legislate friends talking to each other. That'd be a First Amendment violation. You want to talk about a court jumping on that. Holy cow, you think they have problems now. Coach Sean, talk to me about how it's changed since even you played and your thoughts on everything we've talked about thus far.
Tell you this, contrary to what people believe, money has always been a part of this. Even going to an HBCU, you have people that anybody that played will tell you, especially after games like for us, Magic City Classic, you have all these alums in the locker room at Legion Field, you know, and you need that when you're in college. So nobody's complaining, you know what I mean? So, but when you see the things that's going on now, I don't think it's ever been like this. It's wide open as it is right now. Because now you have all these guys that are cloaking that in NIL when it's really not NIL. NIL is name, image, likeness. All these times these guys used our faces when I was in school. We didn't have these little handheld computers that we have now. We didn't have no clue. Nobody reads the fine print on a scholarship. They're gonna pay for my education. I'm going. Right? We didn't know what it mean. Now these guys are a lot smarter. They're a lot smarter. They understand rules, bylaws. They understand things that we never dreamed of even challenging when you're in college. And they're challenging it to the letter. They're challenging it to the letter, man. And so you have these schools that are presenting these pay for play um, stipends or whatever you want to call it to these kids, cloaking it in NIL when that's really not what NIL is at all. I mean, what I know for a fact, I got a lot of friends who coach high school ball still now. A lot of my former teammates that coach high school ball in the state. What they dealing with now is something totally different. Like it's in your face. It's wide open. That's why I'm really, really, really eager for this revenue sharing, because then at least you won't be able to go below board. It'll be above board with what you won't be able just to come behind a kid and offer a kid money to not go to this university, or when it's on the books, it's on the books. It is what it is. You have some amazing things, and that's the word I'll use. You have some amazing, Clint, you probably know it's you have some amazing things going on right now. And I understand it, man. From an adult standpoint, we get upset at the kids. I get it, but I would tell anybody, any adult, just going to camps with these kids, man. When you hear some of the things and numbers that are being thrown, if you, I challenge anybody that's involved with this, go look and see what a highly ranked quarterback is going for out of high school right now. When I heard that, I was like, what? I couldn't believe it. Like it's, you would not believe it. A highly ranked quarterback who's, well rewarded and well documented. You wouldn't believe what the quarterback is going for these days. So when you see this stuff going on, man, it's no lid to it until some type of revenue sharing type thing to where you can please both sides. You can please the athletes. You can please the rule makers, because maybe then they can put some stipulations on these things. They can control it to a certain extent. Um, but the good thing is the athletes are making the money. The bad thing is now you're going to have some cans of things that get opened that I don't know how it's going to be closed. You're talking about other sports. When you go to revenue sharing, how is that going to affect non-revenue sports? How is that going to affect, it's just a lot of questions that I really have. Like I said, I'm still really, really cool with a lot of coaches, these kids. I still go work out with them. So the bad thing about this is these kids are not coming up wanting to go to Alabama like we did when you grew up in a state or out of state, or wanting to go. They come up wanting to know who's paying the most. Well, how much did such and such get? Well, how much? That's the talk in the locker room. And that's just not good, man. It's not good. I'm all for players getting paid. I understand how it is to be the broke player on the team that's eating ramen noodles,
Don't you talk
being
down on
embarrassed.
ramen noodles.
Yeah, man, I love ramen, but about 3 or 4 nights of those, you want a steak or something after that. You want some Applebee's or something after that, and you're embarrassed to ask your teammates, I get it. I totally get it, man. And the scholarship pays for those 3 meals a day. But after that cafeteria closed, you on your own, and so I get both sides of it, man. I just don't know where we go from here. I wish we could get some type of control over it to where everybody's happy. You're not going to be able to please everyone, because I seen a question in the chat a while ago. Even when this stuff comes out legally and everybody's getting what they want, you still gonna have somebody that's not getting what the other person's getting, maybe. And I don't know how this thing is going to work out, man. But you really need some powerful people, some smart people like Coach Saban, who's been in the game, who's been in the living rooms. And I'll tell you this quick nugget too, as well. We get mad at the kids, and Clint, but you also have some parents out there that's pressing that line, man. I know you have some parents that they're sinking their teeth into this, man. Love the university, but such and such offered this, I mean, it's a little ridiculous right now. It really is.
Yeah, great question too about non-revenue sports, because that is one that, as excited as I am about revenue sharing and the possibilities of what it can fix, I'd be lying to you if I said there aren't real questions about what it could hurt. And Coach Sean, I think that the chief question is the one you brought up. What about the non-revenue sports? Like, what is this going to look like? I don't have that answer. That does scare me. But this is what makes this conversation so interesting, right? Like, what is the answer? God knows they don't pay. NCAA, just pay me. I'll do slightly more than what you're doing, which isn't a whole lot, right? But I'll do it for like 4 cheeseburgers and some ramen, because I can't let Coach Sean besmirch the good name of ramen noodles like that. You can give me the cheap stuff. Chance, talk to me about your perspective on all that. Then I want to give it back to Clint so we can talk about the portal, kind of put a bow on the NIL and all of this craziness.
Yeah, I wanted to ask some questions because, like I said, I'm not the most educated in terms of revenue sharing, but basically, it's basically a salary cap. It's basically the NFL's version of a salary cap that's being pushed into Power 5, Power 4 conferences, right?
Yeah, that's what I would attribute it to. Clint, I don't know if you have any more insight on this, but when I hear revenue sharing, I think it allows you to do things like a salary cap. And then in the NIL, like if Tua wants to get sponsored by Gatorade, he is more than able to get sponsored by Gatorade, right? Like that's how I imagine it. Clint, what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I would say so. That to me is probably the best analogy. It doesn't line up perfectly, but I would probably say salary cap. It's probably as close as you're going to get to that at the very least.
Yeah, that's how I would view it. Is that the only question you had, Chance?
I just wanted to get some confirmation because like I said, I tried to do some research on it, and I do know that like other athletic departments have to have it. Football and basketball will get the highest share, $20 million, I think is what is reportedly that every Power 4 conference will get it, and then it'll be pushed up to 2030. I'm sorry, to $30 million. But ultimately, you want to join in on this?
Oh, what are you talking about?
You want to talk about revenue sharing?
Sure.
What do you think about revenue sharing for college football?
Wow. I'm against it.
You're against revenue sharing?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you heard that, folks. You heard that, chat. You heard it.
Well, we have a detractor, right? That's what makes this great. That's what makes this great.
Was that Hugh Freeze?
Oh,
yeah, it might be Hugh Freeze. I mean, based on what we've seen.
Oh boy, don't get me started on that, right? We'll go real unhinged, and I want to maintain some level of professionalism for you, right? You do such a good job. I don't want to bring you down to my level. So we're gonna avoid that one. Clint, I want your take on the portal, specifically for Alabama, because the Jalen Mbakwe news, out of everything that's happened right now, at first that was the one where I was like, Wow, that's shocking. Now, I understood all of the details behind it, get that, but that was the one where I was like, man, this is really surprising. What moves have surprised you from players moving? Have there been any surprising moves in your opinion? What are the wins that Alabama fans need to be really excited about, and who are you most excited about?
Yeah, I mean, there really hadn't been anybody. Mbakwe would have been the guy it's like that would have floored you. Devontae Smith, he was probably the one that actually ended up transferring that was the most surprising because he was expecting, or we were expecting him to continue to have a pretty big role. It wasn't a situation where he was a starter and then the coaching staff's like, yeah, but you're not quite what we're looking for at that position. It'd be probably better if you went somewhere else because we'll probably be going in a different direction. We can't promise you any sort of big role in 2025. It was nothing like that. And really, there's nothing that you point to and say, oh, I mean, that makes sense. But there hadn't been any leaks of some massive deal necessarily. It's not that he's like, okay, he's trying to get closer to home, maybe. I mean, he did get closer to home, but he's still pretty good ways away. Playing time, I really can't tell you what the decision was on that, but I know that while I still feel good about some of Alabama's options at that position, I really like the way he played this year. As far as incoming, I think Alabama's done a very good job. I think everybody with the way that the Mbakwe situation played out, everybody was a little bit, fans were frustrated. They weren't happy with, how that situation went down. And you've got people saying are you so broke that you can't pay him? And then you've got other people saying, if you pay him, you're giving in to his demands. That's going to send the wrong message. And so, I mean, Alabama, I think they handled that to perfection, if I'm speaking candidly. But, you had that, and then you had guys who were maybe coming onto campus or were getting linked to Alabama. Alabama was not pressing for them. I mean, some of them had offers, others did not. But it wasn't a situation where it's like, hey,
was Jimmy Sexton involved?
Well, I mean, at this point, he runs everything else. Yes. It's only a matter of time. And I, to be honest with you, I trust Jimmy Sexton a billion times more than I would the people who are currently operating this, whatever you want to call it. But but fans were wanting like some commitments, some big name guys. Tell us we're getting all the great players. Not only is that really not happening initially, but you've got them going other places like Auburn signing some bigger name guys. You've got Texas A&M. You've got, guys going to different places. And so that on top of the Mbakwe situation, people start to panic. And really just, it was Alabama. They have a game plan for A, what they're looking for, and B, what they're willing to spend on it. Like, you're not going to go out and spend a ton of money on a guy who you expect to be your wide receiver 3. Like, you're going to make sure he's compensated fairly. It's not like no money was involved in that process, but this idea that you're going to go and hand him like an equal deal to Ron Williams, it's like they're very disciplined, and they also understand the long-term impact of, okay, if you go pay Jalen Mbakwe $1 million or 7 figures or whatever you want to call it, what does that mean for the other cornerbacks in our room? What does that mean for, if you're one of the impact players, maybe on the second level or the first level? It's like, hey, I don't play the same position, but I make a huge impact on this defense. Do you not think that I do? Because my compensation doesn't reflect that. Like, it's like you'll start getting these questions. It'll trickle down. Nick Saban, I've sat in his office and talked to him before, and he said that was by far the thing that he hated the most about the NFL is that he had, he said it felt like every day a player was coming in saying, hey, I want more money, and it's like, dude, you're paid as the number 3 cornerback in the NFL. It's not like you're making $400,000 a year. Like, but I feel like I'm the best, so you need to pay me as the best. And it's like, we renegotiated you last year, I remember him making the example. This was back, Mark Ingram had just had a successful 2008 season. And he said, he was telling someone else that was in there who was going to be playing for him. He said, hey, if you come and play, you'll be getting the same thing that Mark Ingram's getting. There will be no difference. And I love taking that element out of it. It was constantly having to kind of redirect people to the general manager and saying, hey, I'm the head coach. I coach you guys, but I don't handle the money side of things. That's not me. But they felt like they had a better relationship with the head coach. But now that college football has that with, Courtney Morgan, they have great relationships with him. And so I think that is something smart that Alabama's doing, is that these guys, you get to remove Kalen DeBoer from that conversation. You might have certain guys that go to him for it, but people trust Courtney enough and they feel like they have a good enough relationship where it's like, hey, if you're wanting to know information or wanting to have those types of conversations, you go directly to Courtney, and Kalen DeBoer gets to stay out of it. He can worry about coaching football. And so I like that aspect of it. It's something that you really don't get on the NFL level, where there's like these personal relationships where, players feel like they can go to the GMs a lot of times. So it's different, man. It's been a huge adjustment for a lot of people involved.
And that GM position, this is something where, Goof, you've heard me say it. Listen, Clint, I told you I didn't actually say it. I hinted at it. I have a nasty obsession with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I could probably quote the entire show from season 1 all the way up to the newest season. I'm not going to bore you with it, but I really think I could quote every line from every episode. So Goof comes in here dropping bird law, because I have a shirt that says Kelly and Associates Bird Law. And I am the foremost bird law expert in the United States, right? That is my claim to fame. But here's an interesting idea that Chris Griffin, friend of the show, runs Horns Down podcast, big OU fan, and an attorney himself. Thank you for the $10, Chris. He says, my pitch, unlimited transfers, but you lose eligibility after first transfer. NIL, each conference creates a board to give its players grades like draft grades. Base NIL off of that each year. That'd be interesting. You'd have to have some people that like your trust in the, well, I guess I have 2 questions for you, Chris. Your trust in those assigning grades relative to how other conferences assign grades. Right? Because if you're in the Big Ten and I'm in the SEC and you give a guy we'll do it school grading, right? Just to keep everything clear and concise for argument's sake. You give a guy a B, which nets him between $500,000 and $750,000 a year. I'm in the SEC. I see that and I'm like, hey, screw it. I'll give him an A. I got some money to throw around. Like, that'd be another question I have, but I'm sure that there'd be a way to do that. Clint, what's your thoughts on this? Coach Sean Jantz, open conversation on this.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. I'm with you. That would probably be my biggest hiccup with that whole situation. You would have to have something, especially with like the way that I don't know that you can make that work. I like the idea of it, but you would have some issues. Coach Sean, what do you think? I honestly, I'm going back and forth with it. It's like in one sense, I can see it working, but then also it's like, I don't know how I feel about it.
I don't know if that'll work, because this is what you're going to run into. You're going to always run into, let's say Ryan Williams was coming out of high school this year. Let's say the top receiver on Alabama's team was getting $300,000. You're going to always have that 5 starters coming from high school that they want. They really want him. That's going to always push for more, and if you don't give him more, then he'll go to Ohio State. Or I don't know how that you could regulate that, because you're seeing that right now. The more talented the kid, the more they're getting coming out of high school before they even play college football, because you have other schools that are offering that bag. And when you say base it off of that each year, I can see that if you're already on campus, because I use Bryce Young as the Bryson Wheel as the, if there was an NIL blueprint, I think these guys were it. These guys came to school, they got on the field, they balled out, and they increased their value while being at the University of Alabama. Sure, Bryce was highly rated before he got there, but when Bryce got on the field, his stock went through the roof, right? Then he was really Bryce Young. And all the university asks is just make sure you put that jersey on when you do these little commercials. We don't care about your money, just wear that crimson and white. That's all we want. So I think that is the way NIL is supposed to work. You come to school, you get on the field, you do your thing on the field, you increase your value through your play, and then you get all these endorsement deals from your play through the university, through the collectives, whatever it is. And I think we're backwards right now. We're giving the bag to make you come here. You hadn't done anything, but it's okay. At least now you're here, you're not there. And I think that's what need to be stopped. As far as what Christensen, I think it's a great idea if you could actually get the player to your university without having to pitch so much money to him up front.
What I'll add to that, I know for a fact, multiple schools, players are getting paid, and they have not yet found something for them to do to earn that paycheck.
Thanks.
That is absolutely happening, and that's exactly what Coach Sean's talking about. It is all right. It's pretty clear you're trying to mask it through these other avenues, but it's like, hey, this guy hadn't made an appearance anywhere. He hadn't shown up for a podcast. He hadn't done a commercial. He hadn't, posted anything on his social media. We got to start figuring out some things for him to do to justify the money that we're giving him. And that is exactly what Nick Saban was terrified was going to happen. I do think Bryce Young and Will Anderson are great examples, because that is, he kind of modeled his entire team those first couple of years based off of this belief of you earn your NIL based off of your performance on the field and your brand recognition mixed with our brand. And, that's where you ended up seeing, Bryce Young, that thing was floating around the first $1 million quarterback. I don't remember the exact, I think it was first $1 million quarterback through that. And you had an entire recruiting class who their slogan was rings before Lambos, right? Now, I mean, how many places are using that as a slogan? I feel like that's kind of, even at a place like Alabama, I don't even feel like right now you would get that slogan compared to just a couple of years ago. But the belief was, and what Nick Saban was pitching at that time, is look at these two guys, and if you do it the right way, you're going to get compensated. That will not be a problem. It won't be initially, it won't be out the gate, but we'll make sure that you get your earnings, the things that you deserve once you deserve them. It is very different.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
This is a tough conversation to really have, because the only thing that we're right now, we're on a trajectory to a point where there is going to be effectively, this is going to be the NFL. I mean, if it isn't already now, it's just a unregulated version of the NFL. Like, this is like the 40s and the 50s version where the NFL was in a similar situation like this. This is unregulated National Football League, but we're going eventually, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have, I do believe that we're going to go to we are going to go into the NFL route. Eventually, there is going to be a governing body. Eventually, I wouldn't mind it. There's probably going to be there's eventually going to be a players association. I think COVID was kind of the closest year to what we saw towards that. It's only going to be a matter of time. I continue to say this, matter of time before we get to where there's only going to be two conferences that's going to be competing for the national championship. I do believe it. The Big Ten, the SEC will do that. That will be the AFC and the NFC conference. We will have divisions, and there's going to be better ways for us to clinch, because right now the NFL is the prime example of how to run a proper sports organization, and college football is wildland. So when I kind of evaluate it, I always look at, okay, we're the trajectory to the NFL. It's inevitable. It's inevitable that we're going to have super conferences. It's inevitable that we're going to include more teams to the playoffs, because now there's talks of 16 teams. It's only going to be a matter of time before this committee is going to be washed away, and we're going to go towards AI. If you don't believe me, right now, and again, I like to use boxing. Ty knows I love boxing. But Ty, that Tyson Fury Usyk fight, what was one of the judges? Was an AI judge. It was first
I
time.
didn't know that, but I did miss that fight, and I was
it was a classic.
heated.
Yeah, it was a classic fight, man. But they used an AI judge. The UFC, the Las Vegas, when it comes to MMA and their board, they're using AI judges instead of actual human judges. So eventually, there's going to be something that's going to be settled down that doesn't include humans selecting, having the selection. It's going to be to a point very similar to the NFL, where there's going to be a criteria or guidelines, and if you check more boxes, you're going to get in. The NFL has done it for decades. College football eventually is on that path. So eventually, when it comes to this whole NIL situation, honestly, I think contracts are going to be involved. I think eventually there are going to be contracts. Now, the biggest issue with contracts is the fact that, what if players decide to kind of opt out those contracts, right? What if they decide to kind of sit out for a year so they can kind of get out those contracts? There's a lot of things that players could potentially do. But I'm telling you right now, guys, I think we're going to go to the path of contracts. I think eventually, with this revenue sharing situation right now, Like, yes, every team is going to have a salary cap and players are going to get paid that way. But then I just don't think that's not going to contain the NIL situation of players are going to continue to get paid outside the box, because these universities, and all of a sudden now, like if the NCAA steps in to these universities, they'll say, well, wait a minute, that we have nothing to do with them. What that particular company decides to, if they want to endorse that player and pay him the amount of money to represent that brand, that has nothing to do with us. That's separate. And I don't think there's really anything the NCAA can do anything about it, because they did state that that players can make money outside of the revenue sharing with NIL. So it's too many situations that these players and these universities, it's too many situations where they can get away with it, and the NCAA can't really step into it. The only thing that I think was probably going to happen is contracts that are going to include NIL it's going to include everything. And whether or not the players are going to like it or not, I don't know. I'm not really for the contract things. I just think that eventually we're going to go towards this path, because everything outside of NIL, everything outside the transfer portal, which is basically free agency, and right now with the messed up college football playoff path right now, everything is pointing towards the NFL right now. And people may not like it, but this is the way it is. Once we get into this realm of paying players 7-figure contracts, you're now getting paid. You're now getting paid as a professional player. So that's where I think I see it. I think eventually we're going to go towards the NFL and contracts, and it's going to be a complete mess. And honestly, the NCAA has nothing to blame but themselves.
I got a question for y'all real quick. I agree with pretty much everything he's saying, even though one of the things that still makes college football so unique compared to the NFL is the revenue that's generated through the controversy of the playoffs. Like, and I don't think we talk about that enough. With the NFL, there's never drama. There's never debate. You don't have people up here on panels and drawing viewership. You don't have the college football. You don't have the NFL selection show, on a Sunday where people find out if their team's getting in the playoffs or not. There's just zero drama. And I think one of the things that does make college football exciting still, before you had these debates dating back to when it was the BCS and it was just two teams going, and then you had bowl games and all that other stuff. But then once it expanded to the 4 and now to the 12, just the conversations on that front, I wonder if it will ever become a formula like that, because if you do that, you're eliminating a huge chunk of what draws attention, and that's people talking about your product and the conversations and the debates. I mean, we've all been going to war on Twitter and everything else about this for the last couple of months. And so, I mean, if there's a straight formula, I feel like that would really cause the sport to lose a lot of that luster.
Yeah, and first off, thanks Tennessee. Get dog walked.
Only Tennessee, right? Only that team would be the ones to embarrass the conference. Only them.
Get dog walked by a good Ohio State team. You're not going to hear a peep from me, right? They're very talented. Will Howard had himself a game. It was Ebony. Yes, you can do your victory lap.
You're losing to Oregon, Ebony. So you can enjoy your last.
Let her have her moment. Let her have her moment. Clint, just so you know, Ebony is Noah Carter's mom, and she is split between Bama and Ohio State, right? So she's celebrating the win, and we love that for her. Truth, and I mean this genuinely, thank you to your Longhorns for not doing what Tennessee did, okay? Thank you for handling business. Continue to do so, and everything will be good, right? I will come unglued if anything happens against Arizona State. All right. You think you'll be mad? Boy.
Let me say this real quick, Ty, before you move on.
Of course, Coach.
Remember this too, guys. Remember this. These are still 17-year-old kids. When you start talking about, I think right now is very dangerous, me personally. I think back to when I was that age and going to college. Man, when you playing football in college at any university, it's just something about it, the way you just feel like you better than everybody. I don't mean like you're better than everybody. There's a pride to go along with wearing that jersey no matter where you go. And all these kids come from different backgrounds. All these kids come from different backgrounds, different areas, different upbringing, states, cities, and the human mind. If I had Jake on here, he'll explain the OODA loop and things like that. Very rarely do you have a 16, 17-year-old kid who's full. What's up, Coach Al? Much love to all my brothers in the chat. Coach Al, Coach Carr, everybody. Piano Man, everybody. But listen, when you're 17 years old, guys, and you're talking, I know adults that can't handle conversations about thousands of dollars, much less a 17-year-old athlete. So when you start talking about these monies and going here and going there and what it means, and you almost forced to be selfish. You're putting a system in place right now where the athlete almost look at him, Jalen Mbakwe. Like you're almost forced to be selfish. Now sure, there's other athletes that share some of the money with their teammates. They do things for their teammates, but you're almost, in other words, look at Jalen Mbakwe, right? Marketable kid. They do a lot of different things, do a lot of companies here in Alabama, podcasts. That's a lot of these things these kids are doing is for NIL and other to promote themselves is what I'm trying to say. You're putting a system in place where promotion of self is what you're getting paid for. It's like, damn, my teammates. I know that's not what they say, but you're putting a individual system in place. Jalen Mbakwe, bless him, love him to death. But what you think Xavier Brown could potentially ask for? He did start. He was a freshman. He did play well. I don't deserve the same. So you're putting a system in. It's almost like a bidding war that you're putting in. And I don't think this stuff is going to stop until the powers that be come together, put their heads together, and put some sort of ruling or some sort of infrastructure in to where everybody's happy and the money still is flowing like it usually do.
Coach, me personally, I think that there might you could have an NIL cap. I can see something being implemented like an NIL cap to saying, you know what, this 7-figure, 8-figure, or additional things that are being added, like land and penthouses, and we may see something in the future where we actually do have a salary cap. I know for the most part this is kind of like it, but we actually do have a salary cap and saying, okay, if you want to pay these specific players, that's particularly fine, but there's going to be repercussions. You're not going to be paying everybody. There's going to be repercussions of what you do, and NIL, with it, depending on if the player does get it. I mean, that we could see something in the future kind of regarding it. There's going to be something in place that players are not going to like, fans may not like. There's going to be something that's going to draw negative attention, because it's the wild, wild west right now, and we'll see if this thing gets. Well, first of all, we got to see if this thing even gets improved in April, and then 2025 is where it's projected to happen, but I could see some years down the line that there's going to be a cap being put in place to where not everybody's going to get paid, and quite frankly, honestly, I think roster size could be cut down massively. I think we could have honestly a 60 or maybe even a 63-man roster, or maybe even shorter than that.
Yeah, listen, no shortage of problems here. A shortage of solutions, and I think that's really why we've been on this conversation. Clint, I know I told you we'd be going an hour, and I know we're rapidly approaching that. So before, if you have to go, all understood. I cannot thank you for your time. I did want to get your take on this Michigan game, though, because Alabama has a chance to try and enact some revenge. So let the people know what you think the keys to victory are and what Alabama has to be concerned with this matchup.
Well, it's like with anything. I think one of the big things that helps Alabama, you do have the people who are transferring, like everybody's dealing with that. That's, same thing as an opt-out, right? Except for its next destination rather than NFL. And that's going to impact things. I mean, Alabama, they're depleted at cornerback, especially if I believe at the very least Mbakwe will continue to play corner. He might see some time at receiver, but I wouldn't be shocked if from a depth standpoint he still played some corner. Maybe I'm wrong on that. We did even hear from the coaching staff that Red Morgan's been playing some corner, and that stood out to me And I think that's more so purely from a numbers standpoint. They're trying to get guys in case injuries start to happen. I totally get it. I think they like the fact that Zay Mincy is kind of doing extremely well at safety. So he would be like a logical guy to move back to corner. You might see that, but I think more so they want to go ahead and get him some experience and some reps at the safety position. But so that all plays a factor in it. But from an NFL draft perspective, you didn't have anybody deciding to opt out. You still got the guy who's been your quarterback all year. You still got your left guard. You still got your, the healthy off-ball linebacker. I think that, Donovan Edwards, Michigan, a lot of other places are dealing with guys who have decided to sit out of the bowl game sit out of the bowl game and go ahead and start preparing for the NFL draft. Alabama's not dealing with that, but, I think there's going to be some natural tinkering happening as far as what you don't want to do, in my opinion. You don't want to do that too much because, I think that you're sending the message to your team beyond 2024. I think you're sending the message that, hey, sometimes when we step between these white lines, it doesn't mean a whole lot. We can tinker. We can treat it as a spring game. Nick Saban never approached it that way. It was the reason he never, no offense to Kalen DeBoer, but there's a reason Nick Saban never got beat by the Vanderbilts or the Oklahomas, the 6-6 teams, because it did not matter who the opponent was. Everybody was treated the same. There was never a moment where he stepped on the field. I think once it got closer to the Sugar Bowl with Will Anderson and Bryce Young, it was expected that Will Anderson would play fewer snaps. Like he wouldn't see his typical workload. They wanted to try to protect him as much as they could. That can send that signal to an extent, but I also think they did that at various points throughout the season based off of people I've talked to. They were really trying to preserve him because they knew, he's a special talent and he was going to, go to the NFL and make a lot of money. But I think from Alabama's perspective, like you're looking at a situation where you've had 10 win seasons since dating back to 2008 and keeping that streak alive. I think Alabama does have something to play for, but at the same time, I think you're also looking at a situation where, they're trying some different things. The guys are going to due to numbers, not because they're wanting to experiment and do all these things, but just because at receiver, you're depleted, at corner, you're depleted. And so you will see some guys move and play some different spots. I think that's the biggest unknown when it comes to these bowl games. Sometimes you get in there. The game I was watching earlier between NIU and Fresno State, it's like quarterbacks had opted out or were transferring, and now you've got backups, and it's hard to know exactly what you're going to get. But I think it is good for Alabama's kind of culture, the fact that guys are electing to play who didn't enter the transfer portal. They respect the jersey, they respect the A. It is going to be an interesting matchup though, because I think Michigan right now, with everything that Ohio State's doing, they're trying to, you can right the ship. Getting a win over Alabama going into the offseason, you spend a lot of money on NIL. Bryce Underwood's coming in. You can really build some momentum and some excitement going into the offseason, or it can be like 2019. And really, after Alabama handed them a loss then in that bowl game, it was a different feel for the offseason.
I'm over here. I wear many hats, right? I am the moderator. I reply to people, and I try and play.
That's you doing that?
Yeah.
That's impressive. My brain doesn't work like that. I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah. So that's why I was a little late on getting to the unmute button, but it wouldn't be a live stream if someone didn't talk while muted. And we've actually not had that this evening. So I'll take that one. For me, when I look at what Alabama and this opportunity against Michigan, you touched on it, Clint. I think there's something very powerful that Alabama fans need to recognize. Know that Nick Saban's not there anymore. We know that. But if you want to talk about, okay, now that Saban's not here, what is the Bama standard? Is it going to be national championships at the rate that he won them? Personally, cover your ears, Alabama fans. I don't think so. I think that he was a unicorn. And there's a reason why you just don't see that happening all too much, because he's a unicorn. What he was able to do is not normal. It should not be the standard. But that doesn't mean you cheapen what a standard is, or you cheapen what you set out in front of yourself. And Clint, I think that you talked about it. Bama didn't have opt-outs. Now, Malachi Moore is getting surgery. By all means, man, you were an unbelievable leader for Alabama this year. You came back. You helped steer this new direction that Alabama is going in. You had a phenomenal year. Get healthy. Go to that NFL. I don't mind that. I'm going to be honest, guys. I've said this before. If you're a first-round graded guy and you decide, hey, love everything about this place, but I just got a first-round grade. I'm not going to participate in the bowl game. I'm here for you, man. Like, I get you. I don't blame you at all. But the fact that Nick Saban's not here, Alabama misses the first 12-team playoff, had a good year, but you lost 2 games that you really had no business losing in manners that were really frustrating, right? We can open up that can of worms. Clint, I don't know if you've heard my rant. The whole approach to the Oklahoma game in particular was fascinating to me. The game plan in that game just was fascinating to me. That's a conversation for a different day. But you didn't make the playoffs, and yet you have guys like Tyler Booker saying, no, that wasn't even a thought. Opting out, that wasn't a thought. That's the standard. The commitment to excellence regardless of the circumstances that have been presented to you and that you are currently experiencing. Saying, no, I'm going to keep fighting. If you're asking yourself, ladies and gentlemen, what's the Bama standard now that Nick Saban's gone? That's it. Because even though you aren't in the playoffs, that's the type of mindset that leads to success, in my opinion. And I was so happy to see that persevere at Alabama, even without Saban gone, or even without Saban there, that mindset. So to me, the only thing I could think of whenever I'm forced to ask and answer this question, what is the Bama standard? That's the Bama standard. A relentless pursuit.
Vastly different than Florida State last year, right?
Thank you.
I mean, and you can see how quickly things can spiral, because I don't know that I've ever seen a team fall off quite like that. We've seen teams fall off, but I mean, you're talking night and day different, polar opposite ends of the spectrum. And to me, it all started when people got feelings hurt that they were left out of the playoffs. And understandably so. I mean, I think a lot of people, if you were a fan of the team that you know had gone through what they had gone through, you would probably feel the same way. I don't blame them, but I feel like they let those external factors affect them, and it lingered, and it's created a cultural problem from once you got guys opting out and everybody's choosing to leave, and you got that many players, and then you get just completely embarrassed and destroyed, and you go from being in the college football playoff hunt, having the best season you've had in a while, to being on the receiving end of a lot of jokes in the off season. I think that has affected that program.
By me.
But yeah, I mean, it has affected them. So Alabama is kind of representing the exact opposite of that. And I think that does show a major difference between where those two programs were at from a cultural standpoint.
Norvell sort of set a weird precedent too. He sort of set a strange precedent for a head coach. He was almost, it wasn't being professional and standing up for your team. It was more on a whiny mode, almost borderline, you know. And it's like the program has definitely followed that. And kind of like Clint said, I've never seen a team go from 12-0 to just about 0-12. You know, it's crazy.
I mean, we can say they went 0-12. You're not going to hurt my feelings saying it.
Especially in the transfer portal era where you can replenish a lot of what you lose. I mean, like, I would never expect, and it's not like they didn't go out and sign a bunch of high quality, I say high quality, high priced, they were viewed, you know, DJ Uyunglele. I mean, that guy, I mean, he ended up being a massive disappointment. And I think he showed these problems at both Clemson and Oregon State, by the way, but everybody expected him to, you know, be a pretty, at the very least, a very serviceable replacement for Jordan Travis. Didn't end up working out that way. And that's just the best representation. A lot of positions that unfortunately included a lot of Alabama players as well that transferred in. I mean, just that they were not able to replace what they lost. And in the transfer portal era, I was kind of shocked by that, to it being that degree.
You know, you just said something very interesting, Clint. Everybody wanted to blame DJU. And I'm not saying he's absolved of blame. But I would always get up here and I would get a little bit heated. And I would say, you're not wrong. He's not playing great. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. But this is the same DJU we watched this past season. If you're Mike Norvell, you're supposed to be the offensive wizard. You didn't see that? So the blame to me, I was sitting there and I was like, Mike Norvell, what are you doing? And the other thing you talk about, Clint, that really is a conversation. And this is, I told you before we started, I'm a nerd. So I've loved one aspect of this transfer portal. Right now, we're having a massive case study happening right in front of us. Can you win a championship by putting more onus on the transfer portal than high school recruiting? Jury's still out. But you know what Florida State taught us? You can't strike out in the portal. And that's exactly what they did. Listen, Kalen DeBoer didn't take an arm, a leg, and an entire army whenever he came from Washington. But you know what Alabama did? They batted 1,000 in the portal. Jeremy Bernard was fantastic. Cuevas was fantastic. Parker Brailsford was phenomenal. Damani Jackson, fantastic. Day Jones, whenever he started getting some play, right, came as more of an outside corner, then kind of played that position whenever Devontae Smith, Red Morgan were banged up. He was a really good piece. You have Cam Howard, who always was more of a developmental guy, and kind of the same with King Mack, in my opinion. Real high upside, but a guy who you really wanted to bring in and start molding for the future. You had a bunch of swings and misses at Florida State. And it tanked that program, which to me shows, hey, if you're going to rely on the portal, all love, don't miss. If you're going to shoot for the king, don't miss. And they missed, and they fell. And I fired off a lot of memes on Twitter about it, right?
Yeah, Todd, I mean, Todd, this may take at least maybe 4 to 5 years before they get back on track. I mean, what they're losing right now in both recruiting and the portal is something I've never seen before in my life. Like they're still losing players. I know Malik Benson, he just entered the portal. So yeah, I know that's shocking, right? It's what's going on with that program right now. It's unprecedented. They're doing, I mean, recruiting wise, it's not doing really well. You got kids pulling back, kids that just got there that want to leave and go to the portal now because there's going to be major coaching changes. The coaches that recruited them are getting fired. This is absolutely insane. Now, like you said before, listen, the portal can be your best friend or it could be your worst enemy, right? You can find a balance. Oregon has proven that you can find a balance. Ohio State has proven that you can find a balance. Bama has proven that they can find a balance. Georgia, Clemson's now getting into the game. But ultimately, I mean, Florida State would. What they did last year was that they went all in, right? And this is typically what schools do. Miami, when the portal first was here, remember Miami had like the greatest portal class of all time back during COVID, and they struck out a couple times. Now they were still able to get some solid recruiting classes, so they didn't fall off the depths of the earth. But Florida State in 2022 and in 23, they went all in terms of let's just get high impactful players that can play right away. And to their credit, I mean, you Braden Fisk, Jared Verse, and those guys. Like, I mean, they had 2 starting corners that were transfers. The running back was a transfer from Trey Benson, was a transfer from Oregon. Johnny Wilson was a transfer from Oregon, who was a huge impactful player. Keon Coleman was a transfer. They went all in for those 2 years by just stacking classes together and retaining a lot of those players from previous classes that were transfers. That's the rare part, is retaining those transfers, a lot of those transfers, and combining that with the new transfer portal class of players that can be impactful. That's why they were as good as they were. And if they would have made it to the college football playoffs, they would have had as good as a chance as anybody in terms of winning a national championship. But now it didn't happen. And so what happened? They all left. And instead of focusing on recruiting, which they didn't do in the late stretch of their season, because they were a top 15 recruiting class, and they kind of, depending on what you represent, they downgraded to outside the top 20 to outside the top 25, and they still tried to continue by getting transfers. And these were impact players. These were players that were talented, but they weren't as developed, right? They were year 2 or number 3 as players that weren't really as developed as the ones that came in for the last couple of years. And look what happened. They went right down the shitter, right? They paid a lot of these players. presumably they gave a lot of these players a lot of money, a lot of these underdeveloped players, or maybe it's not as impactful players, the money. They came in there, and you look what the way it is, it's a mess. So I think Florida State, they definitely taught us how to handle the transfer portal class, because it could be your best friend. It almost won them a national championship, but it also taught them that it should not be the end all be all. The transfer portal should be the final piece to the puzzle, like Ohio State, Oregon, what Michigan did when they won their national championship. Again, they had a lot of fourth, fifth year guys, but those additional transfer pieces, like a Mike Sarenstill, those were the final pieces to the puzzle in terms of winning you a national championship.
Well, I'm going to tell you the piece to the puzzle, and that's none other than the gentleman that's joined us this evening, and that's Clint Lamb. Clint, I know you're about to have to run, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate you just giving us your time. Like I told you before we started, I will argue with anybody that I think Alabama has the best professionals covering the team. And I can't name anybody better at what they do covering Alabama than you. From all angles of it, you are my favorite person, not only covering Alabama, but easily one of my favorites in all of college football media. And before you get out of here, you have to tell everybody watching right now where they can find you, what you're working on, and where all of your great content resides.
First of all, that means the world to me. You have no idea. This has been phenomenal. You've got a great audience. Everybody that's been involved in this conversation. I love doing stuff like this. Sometimes I really, I get too much into the X's and O's side of things, and sometimes I just try to ignore everything that's going on around college football with the NIL, and you pay attention to it on a surface level, but diving in and just I want it so bad to be the way it was, but just these types of conversations really kind of bring me back on that side of things, and so I very much appreciate y'all having me. And we got some stuff going on at covercrimson.com. Great message board community, a lot of Alabama fans. With Mick Gillespie and myself, we have a YouTube channel, Cover Crimson. We have Jake Coker's on there, Mike Johnson, former Alabama two-time All-American offensive lineman, Chris Marler, Stacy Blackwood, Emily Grace, McOrder. Like, we got a great group over there, do a lot of different stuff as far as mixing and matching people. So whether it be Cover Crimson's YouTube channel or our message board community, if you're an Alabama fan, we definitely would encourage you to be a part of that. Once again, fellas, this has been phenomenal. Like, I do this stuff a lot. I make appearances places, but getting to have these types of conversations, I don't get to do all that often. And I will say it's been very refreshing, and I appreciate you guys for having me.
Man, anytime that you're available, we do these on Monday. I would love to have you as a repeat guest, because this has been fantastic. And I've just loved every minute of this, man.
Absolutely. Anytime, fellas. This has been a blast. I'd love to do it again soon, man.
Clint, thank you very much. For everybody watching, that's
Appreciate
Cover
you.
Crimson. You got to go check out their YouTube channel. You got to go check out what they have on their message board. I'm not joking you when I say not only is Clint one of the best in terms of X's and O's, the regular content he's producing outside of that is top-notch. Top-notch content is what you should be looking for as an Alabama fan. Cover Crimson has you covered. See what I did there, right? Covered in crimson. So be sure to go check them out. Give them a subscription. I absolutely think it's worth your time. And Clint, as I always tell everybody, two most valuable things you have in life is time and health. And Clint and his content is absolutely worth you giving your time to, because whenever I'm in the need for Alabama content, that's the first place I check. And it's for a good reason. So for everybody out there wondering, where should I get some more Alabama insight? Cover Crimson with Clint. They've got you covered.
Thank you guys so much. Appreciate y'all.
Appreciate it, man. We are going to stay on for a bit longer. Brinsky, wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about all of this, and then I've got to run before I get the chancla to the head. But I also wanted to give a shout out to Lynn Shaneyfelt with the $50 donation, saying Merry Christmas to my guys on here. Hoping you guys have a wonderful next 10 days. Yeah, I'm excited, man. Gonna do some cooking, gonna do some not Christmas shopping, because goodness gracious, where I live, it's like The Walking Dead out here. I'd have to fight just to get a morsel. Awful. But thank you very much for that, Lynn. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. Thank you for all the support. Thank you for everybody tuning in. That really was an awesome conversation, and I'm serious, y'all. Clint makes unbelievable content. I genuinely think, not even talking Alabama, he's one of the best in college football. I mean, one of the best, right? Rarely do you see me comment back and forth to guys online, to guys on Twitter. But Clint was one where I would always comment because I'm like, hey, this guy knows his stuff and he's teaching me a lot. So unbelievable being able to have him here. Brinsky, how have you been, man?
I've been great, man. I've been enjoying the show, man, trying to get the little one down, enjoying y'all. Great insights, learning. It's been highly entertaining tonight, as always, especially on Monday.
Love having you on here, my man. Talk to us about what you're thinking in terms of this Bama-Michigan game.
It's going to be interesting seeing some of the guys that haven't played all year, especially the guys that we lost from Kendrick Law to Kobe Prentice. And I think we only had like 4 or 5 wide receivers available for this game. So that's going to be one of the crazy things. I'm a little worried about that, just see how it's going to go. Some of the running backs, who's going to play for real, like get to more than likely see Daniel Hill a little more. Definitely going to see a more healthier Richard Young. He hasn't been really healthy all year, so definitely get to see a lot more of him. And hopefully we run the ball a lot more in this game, hopefully. Defense, Zay Mincy playing that safety position. Definitely, I think one of you guys said Red Morgan getting more snaps in practice. And so that's going to be interested at the cornerback position. So I'm definitely ready to see that. But I think we can go out here and take the W, man. We just got to come out there and just try to finish this year off right. I think you get his coaching staff a lot of time. That only makes them better. But we're going to see how they finish off the year off right.
Listen, I know I've questioned Michigan this year, and I stand by every question. I stand by every question I've asked of Michigan because I don't think I've said anything about Michigan that was unfair. But I'll tell you what, they are a fighting group. And anytime you play a fighting group, I don't care how they have looked. Truth, you can give me this. I always gave credit for beating Michigan. Now, I was always of the mindset of like, hey, I'm not saying it was a great Michigan team. They got a solid defense, and you went on the road to beat them. It's a good win. It's a good win. Will not take that away from you. That's a good win. And they're a group that will fight. This is why this is going to be an interesting game. The Michigan defensive line is good, says Truth. Yeah, I don't know how many of them are playing. And then there's some conflicting reports out there. I have no information, so don't think I got some breaking news for you in terms of if Caden Proctor's playing. But God have mercy if Caden Proctor's not playing, right? I don't know what's going to happen at that tackle position, which form be high upside, and it happened.
Yes, I would.
It happened.
Who starts?
Oh, man. Yeah, it got you, too.
It did again, man. Who starts in left tackle, though?
Guys, I'm so happy right now. Before we answer that, we all got to seem like consummate professionals while we had a professional on here in Clint. No talking on mute. So I love it. Right as he's gone, boom, we get back into the old antics, baby. We're back. I love it. I have no idea who starts. Jance, who do you think starts if Proctor's not a go?
Oh boy, I have no idea. I'm sorry. I'll be completely honest with you. Like I love my Tide. I don't care about this game. I think that college football has ruined bowl games. They've ruined it. This is, of course, this is going to be a game where obviously we care about the future to see what this team does have. But the fact that we have 4 receivers, I think, on this roster that's playing is absolutely ridiculous. I just like there's a lot of things about NIL, the portal, that we didn't even really get into that I have such a huge issue with. Like, it's insane that this is bowl week. I understand that the semester's over and technically you can do it. Dude, this is bowl week. Like something's got to happen. You either got to get rid of bowl games because at this point you're paying like these people these like from a brand perspective. Why would you pay for teams to kind of come and play there when you're not even going to get the best product? You're not even going to get the best product. I mean, I got to take a look at these ticket prices. I got to see like is the game even sold out? I don't even think the game's even sold out.
Well, listen, we've been a show that will check on these things live, so I'm going to keep talking about nonsense while I'm doing this.
Who's been Caden's backup when he go out? Who's been Caden's backup on the left side? Because I don't recall us having over 4 tackles play significant snaps. The 2 that start, Formby and what's my man? It was another one that came in.
Pritchett may be over there.
Was it
the
Pritchett?
Relia Quest Bowl? Help.
It was somebody else. I think it was that was Miles that came in and played a little bit.
God.
Oh, he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. Right.
He's gone. So it's like that's the thing about it. The one thing that we actually can't afford was offensive line depth. We lack offensive line depth this year because a lot of them left the previous year. So now you go into this year, I think you lose 3 dudes. You lose your third string, you lose your third string tackle or kind of more your swing tackle in McVay. So who are you gonna play? It seems like Formby and Pritchett are probably your only solutions, but if they get hurt, who's gonna play behind them? You have no depth.
Because remember this. It's not as easy as you think to flip from the left to the right. The foot placement is different.
Yeah, it's
the
not
pass set
all.
is different. You know, it's not as easy. You know, if you look at Evan Neal's first couple of games in the Giants, he was still lining up like a left tackle. You know, and they was obviously correcting him on the sideline because he would come back to another series and his foot would be different. He was still putting his pass set leg back like he was a left tackle. So it's definitely not as easy as you think.
Miles was Proctor's backup. Well, then Proctor has no backup because I mean, if Miles was the backup, then I don't know. Like it's just
You know what you might be able to do, and someone said it. I mean, the only reason I say this is because the guy's so freaky, like a frog with the mustache. All right, you might be able to put Booker, and then put like a Casey Poe or a Gino Vandemark at guard. Maybe Gino. I don't know. Did he play any tackle with his time?
I think so.
No, but Booker
God
did. But they did push Booker out to left tackle, and Gino played left guard in that game against South Florida. Now it didn't work out, but it happened.
Yeah, Booker.
I have no idea. I don't know the answer, but I do know the answer about the ticket prices, gents. You can get tickets for $80-$90 to the
Jesus Christ!
It's not even
the Relia Quest Bowl.
Imagine a postseason game with Alabama and tickets were like $90. Like I remember because I didn't go to the game, but
Quest Bowl.
Yeah, I didn't go to the game, but my you know I know people that did went the Capital One Bowl back in 2010. Like those ticket prices were expensive. Like $120 per ticket if you wanted to just get in the upper rows like that. Like people because it was a top 10 ranked matchup between Michigan State and Alabama, and people wanted to see it. Like, despite not happening, people wanted to, like, that's the 7th team versus the 8th team. That's prime time. Even if it's called the Outback Bowl, the Capital One Bowl, like these games used to be. Now it's the Quest Bowl. Like what? The fact that the Citrus Bowl said, "Nah, Alabama, we think that South Carolina is more deserving than you. We think that they're a bigger brand than you at this point, and they're going to give you, you know." It's like these people pay for these teams to play, man. It's not the other way around. These teams play for this crap to happen. And the fact that they just think that Alabama is just not a member, like that should piss off. See, this is how you're really going to know if we think the Alabama standard is still alive. This should piss off every Bama player that's going to be playing this game, that they have to even entertain the idea of playing this game, of playing in it because they don't think that you're valuable enough to play to represent you. The Citrus Bowl doesn't even think that you're good enough. Crazy.
That was wild to me, that the Citrus Bowl. And listen, I get it. South Carolina finished the year great. They are a good team. You're not going to hear me say one negative thing about South Carolina because I'd be lying to you. They're a good football team. Bama won the head-to-head. They each have the same amount of losses. Bama had the head-to-head.
And I still don't even understand how they was even trying to make a case to just jump Bama when you lose the head-to-head. We have the same record. Some teams that you lost to, we beat. So
you want to know why?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Please. I'll be very brief, Chance, and then
No,
I'll
go
pass
ahead.
it to you. The old adage, Brinsky, if you're gonna lose, lose early. Bama got blown out late against a 6-6 team. Now they were 6-6 because of injuries. We've talked about OU, the state of OU. We understand that makes your case worse. It wasn't a 6-6 team that was just bad. It was a 6-6 team that was sitting there when Brennan Thompson went out and they were looking around asking fans, "Can you play wide receiver? No? How about you?" Like that's who slapped you around. That's why those conversations happened.
And I'll take the other side of it. I can understand why they put South Carolina in it. I'll tell you exactly why. South Carolina ended the season hot. Their fans are going to travel at this point. We ended the season with 4 turnovers in the 12th game, just like it was our first. We wasn't playing very well. We were not hot on no stretch of the imagination. We were cold as ice, bro. I would even go so far as say if Auburn had a lick of offense, we might have been in some trouble that game too. I get it, man. I get it. If I'm a bold guy and I wasn't a Bama fan, I probably would took South Carolina too. I totally understand why. We didn't go into that Auburn game at home and dominate and show the world like we gave them the ball 4 times. 4 times. We looked just as bad in the 12th game as we did the second game of the season. It was no improvement. We defensively we couldn't stop them. Offensively, we looked inept. So I totally in South Carolina hadn't been doing nothing but whooping ass. So I get it, man. I get it. If you're looking for a team in the spur of the moment, and we're living in this one little moment, right? I can understand why they took South Carolina. I really can.
I think one of the bowl games that is so intriguing that a lot of people I want to experience it one time, and I pray it doesn't go away before I experience it's the Pop Tart Bowl. And I'm glad folks in the comment section is talking about it, the Pop Tart Bowl.
Yeah, Truth tried to make me feel better and said, "Hey, you know how many Alamo Bowls we've played in? We were in a Pop Tart Bowl." I told him I'd rather be in the Pop Tart Bowl.
Yeah.
I
We
know
have
what
a
a Pop Tart is.
Bowl.
What is a Relia Quest? Is it like?
I don't even know what that is.
What is a Relia Quest? I know what a Pop Tart is.
I thought
It sounds like an insurance bowl.
I know what it is. It's a cybersecurity company.
Oh my God.
That's what it is.
We couldn't even get the NordVPN Bowl.
Nope.
Christ.
You got the Relia Quest Gray Man.
My bad, Jose. I got one question. I hope Ebony's still in here. One question. All my brothers, my former bros just from up there, that's Ohio State fans. They all hit me with the transitive property all week. We beat Tennessee. Y'all didn't. So I have one question. If the good Lord see fit for us to beat Michigan, can I use that same transitive property? Because you hadn't beat Michigan in 4 years. That's over 1,200 days. You know what I mean? So I want to know, can I use the same transitive property? That's all I want to ask.
And I think this
transitive property is never the way to go.
And I think this one was more embarrassing because they was less inferior.
Yeah, shame on. But you know what? Shame on Tennessee for embarrassing us like this. We had our case, we had our arguments, which I still actually do believe. And Tennessee just went out there and embarrassed us real quick. And before, you know what? That kind of reminds me. Let me get into this real quick because I got a bone to pick with Joe Klatt here. I got a bone to pick with this guy. I'm so because he keeps running his mouth, talking about how trying to compare the college football to the NFL. First of all, you cannot compare the two when it comes to playoff systems because the NFL actually has a playoff system that's been in place for decades that doesn't require human beings to select you. It doesn't require it. You have a system in place that takes into account strength of victory, conference record, head-to-head, if there is a head-to-head, divisional record, etc. They take all those criterias, all those criterias together, and whoever has more checkboxes, you get to clinch a wild card spot, or you can clinch the divisional spot, or you can clinch the number 1 seed to a point where you can get the bye. I think number 2, Joe Klatt, again, you want to talk about wild card games, about the margin of the score, how these wild card teams, more teams in the wild card gets blown out than the than college football's first round. Well, sir, you do realize that only one team for each conference gets the bye week. Before they added the 7th team, it was 2 teams. So of course there's more wild card games than they are divisionals. There's more wild card games than, of course, your conference championship games. There are more wild card games than, of course, your Super Bowl. You have a first round, a quarterfinals, and then you get to the lesser amount of games. So when you're dealing with 32 teams compared to the 130 something teams of college football, and you have you have a body. You don't even have a system. You have a body in check that's supposed to pick based off of the quote unquote criteria, which they don't do, because in some years they have specifically said this team was the best team, and some years they have said that this team was the most deserving. 3 years, last year, they picked Bama over Florida State because we were the best team. In 2017, they picked Alabama over Ohio State because they said that they were the best team. In 2014, they said that they picked Ohio State over TCU and Baylor, despite Baylor and TCU having a better resume and everything like that. They picked Ohio State because they said that they played the best in the last 2 to 3 weeks of the season. But now all of a sudden, for the first time ever, they sat up there and said that SMU gets in because they're the most deserving team. We've never heard this before, but this particular year. So the one year that they don't want to follow the quote unquote criteria, of course, it's when you have a different body of the selection committee. Every single year they change. It's never been consistent. So of course you're going to have biases. Of course you're going to have people out there that doesn't like the University of Alabama, which, by the way, you have two people in there, by the way, who has been known for literally speaking out publicly against the University of Alabama, even accusing them of tampering and cheating for years. You have put them on the committee, of course. So listen, Joe Clapp, bro, you got to shut your mouth because you don't know what you're talking about. Don't compare the NFL about how they do their system because when a team clinches a wild card spot, no one has an issue with it. No one has a problem with it. Why? Because there has been a guideline in place for years. And if you check those boxes, you are in. This is not a human being trying to be subjective. There already is subjectivity in terms of wild card teams being clinched out. So even though you have blowouts like Tennessee got blown out today, we can understand that because Tennessee deserved to get in. Tennessee checked more boxes than SMU. Do you realize that SMU and when it comes to the top 4 teams in the ACC, they played 1, and that was in the conference championship game, and they lost? You do realize, Joe Clatt, that Indiana, by the way, out of the top 5 teams in the Big Ten Conference, you played 1. You didn't play Illinois. You didn't play Iowa. You didn't play Penn State. You didn't play Oregon. You played 1 school and got your ass kicked. So, Joe Clatt, we're not mad that Tennessee got blown out. We're mad that the schools that had no case but record got in and got their ass kicked by giving us a rough product. And Joe Clatt, one thing I'll say this too, you want to talk about how wins matter, right? You want to talk about how wins matter. Well, if wins truly matter, then Joe Clatt, then Florida State should have gotten in over Alabama. Why did if the committee valued wins, then Florida State would have gotten in over Alabama. If they valued wins, then guess what? It valued wins and strength of schedule, then TCU or Baylor should have got in, not Ohio State. If margin of loss mattered, then definitely TCU and Baylor would have got in because Ohio State had a worse loss and they had a worse margin of loss to Virginia Tech. And Baylor's only loss was to a ranked top 15 Oklahoma State school, and TCU lost to Baylor 61-58, a 3-point score game when that was the number 2 and the number 3 ranked team in the country. So it's a lot of inconsistencies, Mr. Joe Clatt. A lot of inconsistencies of what you're trying to say. You cannot compare the NFL playoff system to the college football playoff system because that's again, you're comparing apples to oranges. It's not going to work out. You can't use that argument. You can talk about how wins matter all they want, but the fact of the matter is, you know that you're bullshit. You know that you're full of shit. You know that you're full of shit. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that these analysts like Danny Cannell and Joe Clatt continue to try to defend these takes. It's incredible to me. The NFL has actually got a system in place that's been around for decades, and no fan has argued with it. You never heard a fan. The Buffalo Bills just clinched a wild card spot. The Ravens clinched the wild card spot. The Steelers got a wild card spot. No fan has made an argument about the seeding that they're in, and of course they clinched it. No one has argued with it. Why? Because people knew the criteria to clinch the spot. You earned your way in. And by the way, scheduling in the NFL, you're playing at least 2 to 3 teams that are elite. You're playing, every team is going to play at least 2 to 3 elite teams. In college football, regarding SMU and Indiana, they had a combination of one school that we consider elite. One. And they got their ass kicked.
You want to know what that reminded me of?
Flawless.
I'm a big Boondocks fan. And to me, Jance just looked at Joel Klatt and said, game, recognized game, Joel Klatt. Game, recognized game, and you're looking kind of unfamiliar right now. I loved that. I think that a big thing that we need to do is, one, transparency as to what the committee is looking for. Jance, I think that all of your frustration is well placed. I think that the only reason why I don't share it to the same degree is, one, I have such a low expectation for anything that the NCAA does. So that's, and two, it's the first year in the new 12 teams. So I expected them to not make up, that's a bad word, but and to integrate new parameters. But you're right. We need complete transparency. People didn't realize last year that there was a provision in the college football committee that stated if you have a major injury that would change the trajectory of your team, we will take that into consideration. Nobody knew that. The only reason I knew that is because I'm a nerd. I have no life. I have a problematic addiction to college football. I looked on their website and boom, there it was. I remember seeing it in 2014 when I was like, hey, what are these parameters? But they don't talk about it. So you're 100% right. One, we need transparency. What is the criteria? And two, I'm not saying that we need to... Well, no, I am about to say that. Scheduling needs to be a bit more equitable. Okay? To where I don't know how you do it, but I think maybe the way you do it isn't by taking away the big non-con games. It's by making more of them. Not for an Alabama. Not only for an Alabama. Like, next year, Texas, don't they play Ohio State next year?
Yep. And in 2 years, we'll play Ohio. We'll play Ohio State too in about a couple years. Home series.
Yeah, I think, Jance, that I understand that argument right now, and you're not wrong. I think though that if we did that across the board,
yep, that
would be great. Like, good on Texas. And I know people will be like, oh well, they scheduled that game so long ago. Ohio State's gonna be good. Right? They're never a bad football team. They're better than other times sometimes. But good on Texas. Good on Bama. Good on Bama for scheduling them as well. If that happens across the board, all of a sudden we don't have to worry about, oh, you played Bishop Sycamore, and then when you finally played a real team, you get your back blown out. Congratulations, right? And I love SMU. Y'all will know I like SMU a lot. I rooted for them. But they made me look stupid. Guys, I want to go around the table, let everybody know where they can find all of your great content. I promised the wife I would keep it to an hour and a half, and I have not kept it to an hour and a half this evening. But here's the good news. The Monday shows are back. Okay, we are back. We will be here next Monday as well, really diving all into this Michigan game, talking about college football, talking about the portal, talking about the playoffs. Monday shows are back. Guys, I can't tell you what it means to have you guys on this panel with me. Y'all know how much I value not only your football opinions, but your friendship, right? Because I think that's the thing that people might miss, is that we do this not only because we love talking football with each other, but because this is what this show is supposed to be. Friends talking football. So Want to go around the table, but I got to keep you on your toes, so I'm going to just pick a random order. Brinsky, where can the people find all of your great content? Oh, there we go. There we go. It happened again.
And
But
I
I'm
said
just-
my bad. Oh my God. Jesus Christ, man. Oh, I'm Brinsky Sharp of the Sharpshooters Podcast. Y'all can catch me on the Sharpshooters Podcast YouTube channel. You can also catch me at B_Sharp on Twitter. Appreciate you guys. I'm gonna drop the link in the comment section in a second, right along with the other brothers. Make sure you guys subscribe to Ty's channel and also hit the like button. It's like over 100 and some odd people, so this video should definitely get 100 and some likes. Definitely, always, brother. Appreciate you for always letting me come up here, speak my opinion. Coach Sean, love you as always, brother. Jans, love you too, brother. And I gotta finish watching that Joel Clapp video that you just did. So y'all make sure y'all go check out that video on Jan's channel, because I was waiting on him to do that.
And Lisa, thank you very much for the $25 saying, thanks for great informative 2024. Roll Tide, Merry Christmas, and I have to match half of what Lynn donated. Lisa, I am so sorry that I am late getting to this. I just, got caught up in the conversation. Very sorry to have been late addressing this, but apparently I didn't do a very good job tonight. Gary, Bama for Life with the $2 donation says, great to see you fellas. Thank you very much for the donation, Gary. Bishop with the 333 saying CPA and financial education. Big salute, fam. Thank you very much, Bishop. That's my fault, guys, on being a little bit off it on the donations tonight. I promise that won't happen again. I think I was excited being able to talk to Clint and the first stream with my guys in nearly a month. Actually, I think it is a month at this point. I think it was a month. So that's my fault. Won't happen again, but I am unbelievably appreciative of those donations. Like I'll always say, the two most valuable things you have in life is time and health. And I really can't even articulate how much I appreciate all of you in the chat giving us your time. Not just me, but everybody on this panel. We don't have channels if it's not for all of you who watch, who comment, and these shows aren't what they are without the interaction. And that's all you guys, right? That's nothing to do with us, everything to do with the people who watch. Jance, where can the people find all of your great content and that Joel Klatt rant?
You can find it at Jant Sports. I'm gonna do way more because this dude. I mean, I might have to do a Danny Cannell one. It's unbelievable, man, that Joel Klatt just continues to do. I mean, every single year he tries to defend the Big Ten. Tries to defend, that the Ohio State take about how they don't pay players, and then he got exposed literally 2 minutes later when Gus Johnson came out and said that they paid them $20 million, and Joe Klatt still didn't apologize for the take, by the way. So that just kind of explains to you about what Joe Klatt is. But no, you can find it at Jant Sports on YouTube. Again, if you want to follow me on TikTok, same thing, Jant Sports on TikTok, and the Jant 716 on X. Or Twitter is what they call it.
No, it's Twitter. It's Twitter.
Twitter.
It's Twitter. I just love making fun of that, right? You had one of the most recognizable names and you changed it. Which, look, it's working out. Still really used, but that's always just been one of the craziest things, right? Just for the simple fact of you had a brand that was just there and you changed it and it's working. It's just funny to me. Bishop Frank with the 555 saying, big salute, fam. CPA Ty, Coach Sean, Jance, Brinsky, Ty is back. This here gumbo is fire. Gumbo does sound fantastic. I think I might have to try and pursue some of that this little break while I'm off work. Coach Sean, talk to me, man. How you doing? Where can the people find all your great content?
First, let me say thank you to my brother Ty for coming back, hooking us up, man, as he usually does. Much, much love from all of us to you, bro. You already know how that go. Much love to Brinsky and Coach Jay, and big, big, big thank you to Clint for coming in with us and blessing us with some love and his knowledge. Much love to everybody from Brinsky's channel, that boy Tez, that boy Jason, around the water cooler. Shout out to all them boys, man. Shout out to Coach Carl, Coach Al, our brothers that be on the channel with us, man. Piano Man, much love to those good brothers, man. Tap in with Coach J today. I reposted his rant. It was absolutely awesome because it was spot on. Just like I put in there, it was spot on. And lastly, I'll say before I get my channel, I expected the Penn State fans, who else in the Big Ten? Indiana. I expected all of them to wave the Big Ten flag when they beat Tennessee. I did not. I tell you, it was shocking. I did not expect Ohio State to do that. Ohio State is Ohio State. They win just like we win. When we beat Ohio State, when we beat a Big Ten school, we just go about our business because it's normal protocol for us. I didn't expect Ohio State to attack the whole SEC after beating Tennessee like that. You were favored, if I'm not mistaken. You supposed to won. I picked Tennessee to beat you, but I didn't expect Ohio State to go that hard about it. So we're gonna see what y'all do this week, right? I put on my Twitter, it's great win, but it don't mean nothing without the big trophy. So you can definitely find me at JMHO Sports Talk on Twitter and YouTube, man. JMHO Sports Talk, just my humble opinion. Much love
And Coach
to you.
Sean, I think the most real quick, the most important thing is that Tennessee hasn't won a national championship since I was born. The streak lives
Wow.
on.
And to add to Coach J really quickly, this point need to be put out there. Everybody's arguing on Twitter, everybody, me included, everybody going at everybody. But remember this, man. You have a system that put a team in that has lost 3 times to 3 different teams in the SEC. You put that team in the playoffs saying they won the best 12. That's all I want to say.
Yeah, I'm interested in how they're going to fix this. Now, before we get out of here, I do have a little bit of breaking news that I just think is cool. We will unpack this more in the future. Next Monday, we will really get into this. But Coach Prime has what's the actual term here? I don't want to get this wrong. Let me go back to On3 because apparently, when you're on Twitter and you see what you're looking for and you scroll down a little bit, and by the time you scroll back up, the whole page is refreshed. Now you can't find what you're looking for. That just happened to me. But here we go.
Thanks.
Coach Prime has announced Colorado will provide disability insurance for its players in the Alamo Bowl. And I quote, "We have a multitude of players that are draftable. We want to make sure that if something were to happen, they would cover it."
Wow. What they going to say now?
That's what we love to see.
Wow. And
That's
Lynn,
great.
tomorrow at 4, I'm going to go on for a little Christmas Eve live. Fellas want to come, they'll be more than welcome. About an hour tomorrow, really Christmas Eve live at 4. I'll put it up. We'll go in. We'll rant and rave. But shout out to Colorado, man.
I'm surprised that hasn't even been included. Like I'm like that's something I've always wondered. Like, why isn't that really included? Players get hurt all the time, and there's no insurance for it.
Well, and I don't know if you remember, they did that. Bama does that, but I don't know if it's for everybody. But I do remember that Bama has done that in the past. But I think this should be a thing across the board.
Top tier players, usually they get the insurance policies, those top tier players.
Yeah. And they might, Veronica, but I think we're all just excited it's becoming more pervasive, right? That needs to be a thing for everybody, for every player. So we'll unpack
Let me say
that
this
more.
real quick, Ty. I think they're confusing regular insurance with insurance. Like everybody got insurance, medical insurance if you get hurt, but to the kids that are NFL draftable,
like
they have insurance. Yeah, they have insurance policies. So if you do get hurt and can't play anymore, you get a nice check only for getting hurt for that game.
Yeah. So listen, it's going to be fascinating to see. Love to see that, though. That should be commonplace across the board. But until next time, we've had a member of this panel sit so quietly. It's been so long since they've had their say that, of course, I have to let them get the final word. And that's the spinning wheel of doom. And it's been